Hello there, Primary 7. I hope that you're getting to see this video. I am recording this on the same day that we did our last live session. I'm only going to keep you for about 10 minutes, maybe 15. I don't know how long this is going to take, but we got some questions today that we didn't have time to answer on the live session, but it's really, really important that I think that we get to them and that we get to answer them. So I have them on my screen here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read them off. If you haven't seen the second live session yet, it might be worth your while watching that one before watching this. So if you're watching this one first, there are two live sessions that are now recorded, so they're on the e-Sgoil website. I would recommend that you watch them first before watching this one. Okay, so we got a question from Laura. Now, Laura didn't tell us what school she's from, but what our question is our pupils are worried about not being in the same class as our friends and what might happen to their friendship groups at high school. And we also have a question from Elise, and Elise says, what if I feel I can't make friends? And this seems to be a bit of a theme, so we thought with a couple of those questions, let's just answer them very quickly. I think the thing about making friends, Primary 7, is that one of the things you have to remember, we talked a little bit about this on the live session this morning, is that everybody is in the same boat. So when we run those pictures in our heads, like we talked about this morning, we can sometimes imagine that we're going to end up in a class where there's nobody that we know and everybody else knows everybody else. And it's like we're a little bit lost. We're a little bit like the only one that it happens to. Now, I'm not going to lie to you because that wouldn't help you either. So is it possible that you could end up in a class in your high school with none of your friends from primary school? Actually, yes, that is possible, and it could be something that happens. In the same way, it might just be luck of the draw that you end up in a class with your best friend. That could also happen. But what if I can just give you, remember we talked about what ifs this morning. One of the things we can do with what ifs is we can challenge what ifs with positive what ifs. So here's a what if for you. What if actually the best friend that you've not met yet is the best friend that you get to meet at that first day in high school? What if you haven't even realised? You think you've already met your best friend, but what if you haven't? What if you end up on the day one of high school and of first year sitting next to someone that you say, hi, my name is, and then what happens is that somehow you manage to hit it off and all of a sudden you create friends. And before you know it, this person is becoming your best friend in the world. Now, if I could give you some tips on making friends, and by the way, that is possible. Not only is it possible, it's actually exactly what happened to my oldest daughter, Jodie, when she went to school. She ended up in a classroom with nobody from her school, and then her best friend in high school was the girl that she was sitting next to on day one. But if I could give you some tips on making friends, one of the things that happens is that sometimes we forget how long it took to make the friends that we've currently got. You know, you don't just go into a class in primary one on day one, sit down with someone, turn round and say, hi there, my name is Brian, we're now besties. That's just not how it works. It doesn't quite work like that. It takes time. It's just that we've forgotten how long it's taken and how much time it takes because it was so long ago that now when we walk into school, which we talked about on the first live video, it just feels like we've known these people forever. Now, when you're 3 or 4 years old, so when you're young, like when you're in nursery, making friends is dead easy because all of a sudden you've not got any filters. Your mind is really just like, play with sand. Let's build a thing with Lego. And that's basically how your mind works. But as you get older, you start to become quite a complex person. You have certain things that you like and you don't like. Maybe you love sport, maybe you love music, maybe you love dancing, maybe you love drama, maybe you love a certain subject like maths or science, maybe you love to read certain comics, maybe you love certain movies, maybe you like to do certain things at the weekend, like you love to go hill walking where other people love to go swimming, whereas somebody else just wants to sit on their phone for hours. Maybe you don't use social media, whereas everybody else does. Maybe you're somebody who's on social media all the time, and lots of other people aren't. So you've become a much more complex person than you were when you were 3 years old. So therefore now you're going back in to make friends as this quite complex thing. And therefore, a little bit like a difficult jigsaw, it's finding those people that match up. So that means that sometimes how first year goes is that you meet some people, you'll hang around with them because they're in your class, but then after a few weeks you might realise that they're not quite your type of people. Now, for some of you, you'll find out that you're best friends in the world, but for some people you go, these aren't my type of people. But you're not the only one to be experiencing that, and therefore what it will be possible to do is just to be able to move and to shift. Now, depending on the high school that you're going to, many schools put in lots and lots of things to make that easier for you. Those things are things like extracurricular clubs. So there might be a drama group, or maybe there might be a band, or there might be a football team or a netball team or a swimming team or something like that. There may be a book club run by one of the English teachers. There might be something else. I don't know what all of the amazing clubs are. Now, if you're not in a school that runs all them, don't worry about it. That tends to mean that the school's sometimes a little bit smaller, and I'll give you something that you can do there, because sometimes that, again, is, like we spoke about this morning, a little bit about asking for help. But if these clubs are there, and I know that it might be scary, like we talked about today, because you don't know what to expect, but going along to these clubs are amazing ways of getting to meet people who are like you. So people who are into the same things as you're into, what I call your tribe. So where are your tribe? And I promise that your tribe are there. Now, just to put on there, sometimes what we find is we find a tribe in school that does us quite fine, but we always feel as if there's a better tribe, you know, as if there's another tribe somewhere, not a better tribe, but a tribe that even more fits us. And that's why it's not about just going in on day one of first year and going, you'll do, and then sticking with it. If you want to create that tribe, sometimes being able to say, this is who I am and this is what I like, is hugely, hugely important. And as long as you're honest about what you like and you don't pretend and you just say, this is what I'm into, you will find people who are into it. Now remember that the more unusual your hobby is, the less people might be into it. I was in a school recently, in a high school, and there was a young man speaking to me about making friends. He was a lovely, lovely young man, and he was talking to me about how he had quite an unusual hobby. And I asked what that was. And he loves like making models, so look, of cars and aeroplanes and things like that. So he loves putting models together. Now, there are not that many people these days. There was quite a few when I was at school. There wasn't that many people, or not that many people now, who are into making models. So what he found was, because he really loved this thing, he thought that that meant that he couldn't have friends anywhere. And that's not true at all. What we helped him see was that actually it's possible to have friends in lots of different places with other things that he's into. But interestingly enough, out of that, we actually found about 3 other people who are all into the same thing. And with the help of one of the teachers who has bought some model kits, they now started a model club at lunchtime. And now he's got these 3 people that he speaks to. Now, it's very early days, so therefore, as I said, making friends sometimes takes time, so they're not like having sleepovers or going over to each other's house yet, but they're starting to learn that they like the same things, they're starting to help each other, and as far as we can tell, things are developing. You need to give yourself time to make friends. You can't just turn around after day 1 and go, I don't have a best friend anymore. That's not how it works. You have to give yourself time. Now, I hope that makes sense. That was a really important thing that I really wanted to speak about. And Haley asked as well earlier on, what was school like for me? Now, one of the reasons, Haley, that I do the job that I do is because of how school was for me. Actually, when I look back now, I don't think school was as bad as I thought it was when it was there. I actually quite enjoyed school. I did okay academically, so what I mean by that was my subjects were okay. But as I talked about in the first video, I moved school in between first and second year, and that's quite a difficult thing. And I was also quite shy when I was back in school. Now, Shyness is not who I am. Shyness was something that my mind did because my mind was scared about all the things that I'm talking to you about. So this is why I now love to talk to you about it, because now I've got some amazing friends in my life. I've learned a lot of things that nobody taught me in school, and I wish that somebody had taught me this stuff back in school so that it could have been different. So I ended up friends with actually lots of different people. I wouldn't be the type of person who said that I didn't quite have a best friend, but I would have been able to just jump around lots and lots of different groups. The interesting thing is since I've got older and then met lots of people, there are quite a few people who I have found out that called me their best friend. But I didn't call them my best friend because I didn't think I had a best friend because they never told me that they thought of me as their best friend. So I've got 3 people genuinely who thought that I was their best friend. And I was really good friends with them. I'm not particularly friends with them now, but we're much older. Like I'm nearly 50, for goodness sake. So that's not how it went. And now lots of time has passed and we've got our own families. But now as I sit here, I wish that somebody had said to me in school, you don't have to be friends with everybody. Every single one of us has like a friendship code that lives inside our heads. And what a friendship code says is, I need to find someone that matches my code. And if I can find somebody that matches my code, then what we do is we'll lock in place and we'll be great friends. The more they are like my code, the more our code will lock together. So your job is to go and find that. And I think what I'd say to you, Hayley, is I think it's a really, really good question. And the thing to always remember is that school is just one part of your life. You are more than just that school kid that goes to whatever school it is you're going to go to. You have so many other things that happen, from your things you do outside school to your family to maybe even the friends that live in your street or your local area if they're not the same people that go to your school. And never forget that school is just one part of your life, an important part of your life, and a place where for many of us, we'll meet some amazing people who may be part of our lives forever. Then again, for some of us, it's just about getting exams. It is going to be a change, and it's going to be a big change, like we've talked about. But I promise you, as I've taught you in the 2 live sessions, your mind can do this. Your mind can do hard things. For some of you, this isn't going to be a hard thing. But for those of you that are like, oh, it's going to be a hard thing. And that brings us to our last question. Where's it gone? There was a question. Oh, there it's there. From Bellsquarry Primary School. Bellsquarry? I'm not too sure whether I'm pronouncing your name right. From Bellsquarry Primary School or Bellsquarry Primary School. Is it normal to be worried about having lots of different and new teachers at high school? It is absolutely normal to be worried about that. But if I can put your mind at rest, genuinely, you have to remember that the grumpy teachers are the ones that are like, every school has them, I'm afraid. Unless you're going to a tiny high school where you've only got like maybe 3 teachers. But for the most part, most schools will have some grumpy teachers. But you have to remember that that's not necessarily about you. But the majority of the teachers will be lovely and helpful, as long as, and this is your side of the bargain, as long as you are lovely and helpful back. So you can't just expect them to be lovely and helpful if you're going to be all sorts of trouble, right? That's just not how it works. If you're going to misbehave and be cheeky and do all that type of thing, well, what do you expect them to do? I don't know why you would expect them to do anything else. But what you tend to find in life is that you'll get back what you put out. So if you give out kindness and happiness and be a decent person, you don't have to like be perfect, but if you're a decent person, you'll tend to get that back. And I promise you that many of the teachers at your high school will be as excited to meet you and to find out where their new little English person is, or their new wee scientist, or their new little mathematician, or their new sports star. They'll be as excited to meet you as you are to meet them. At least I hope they will be anyway. Right. I said I was only going to keep you for about 15 minutes, so that's 14 minutes now, so therefore I've got a minute left just to say goodbye to you. I hope you have an amazing time in primary school. To the teachers, please remember to fill that thing out, the evaluation form, and get it back in, and if you can get the pupils to do it as well, that would be marvellous as well. This is just a wee bonus video from me, Brian from Headstrong. Thank you to e-Sgoil and all the team for making this possible. It's been lovely to speak to you. Good luck in S1, everybody, and I'll see you soon. Bye.